Professor, we heard this sort of tentative timeline by the end of April for a partial reopening of a channel. What is your best guess for a timeline on that? Is that optimistic? Also cleanup and then rebuilding the bridge completely?
Well, I think that that estimate is being made by the best experts, so I will stick to that. But I can also say that they are facing very difficult obstacles and many unknowns. So, further delays are still possible.
How
One of the more interesting things for us is when they remove the ship, as to whether, for example, that pier is in condition to be reused for the next bridge or not. If we have to essentially rebuild the entire piers, the new bridge is going to take much longer to build, most likely. If we could reutilize and perhaps fix that pier that was impacted, the time to reconstruct the bridge might be much shorter. But those are all decisions that will be made as we get a better assessment of the conditions.
And that being said, if we're looking at a worst case scenario, how do you think this bridge will be rebuilt for the future, a completely different design and materials, or in a way that could withstand any future disasters?
Well, I think that it will be probably rebuilt in a different
I see.
way. I think today we would use for that type of crossing probably what we call a cable stayed bridge. People might have seen those that look like a suspension bridge, but actually the cables are straight and more like a triangular type arrangement. Uh, but a lot will depend on the soil conditions and again whether they can reutilize any of the existing structures. It will be ideal to reuse, for example, all the approach spans, but that means that the bridge, for example, might not be as wide as we would like it in the future. We will have to widen not just the existing bridge, but all the approaches. And so it is a very complicated process. A bridge of this size will typically take 5 to 6 years to go from design to completion. If we were to accelerate the process, for example, by uh, accelerating the permitting related to environmental issues, we could probably cut that in half. But it's still a long, complicated issue. My best guess at this point is if everything went right, probably 2 to 2.5 years if we pull off all the stops, but longer if we run into complications.
And does this accident perhaps give way to examine other bridges and infrastructure in the United States?
It definitely does. And you at the top of the hour, you talked about the earthquake in New Jersey. That's another wake-up call. People, because they have not felt an earthquake for many years, don't think that that's a possibility. But, contrary, for example, to China and Japan, our history of seismic activity in the US is very short. We don't know very much. And so, you know, when we design the new bridge, it's very likely that that earthquake is going to have an effect because we're going to have to increase the seismic loads for the design of that bridge. When that bridge was originally designed back in the 1970s, this area was not even considered to be a seismic area.
All right, Professor Roberto Leon, thank you so much for joining us from Virginia Tech.
Thank you for having me.